We're back one more time. Seven Rivers Racing here in KQEG TV. I'm Dan Dyker along with Al Losi. I want to remind you, if you need more of a racing fix on Saturday afternoon from 4 to 5, AM 580 to KTY, I've got my race report show. Hour long, a lot of the guests you see on this program also join me in the race show where we can go a little bit more in-depth on the race teams and focal points of the racing season and whatnot, and even some highlights from some area tracks that I get to venture out to on a weekly basis. Rick Wilson is joining us today. He's the station manager of the TV station you're watching this program on. We're talking about the Knights of Thunder. They recap the races at 7 o'clock on Sunday nights right here on TV 23. Talked about the crash of the week. That's kind of a neat little niche.
Let me also mention that we also added it to Thursdays. You know, we rebroadcast the races on Thursdays at 7 o'clock too. Thursday night now is kind of our race night because we start with 3 Wide Life at 5 o'clock, which is an excellent national program. We follow that with your show at 5:30. Then at 7 o'clock we have the races, and then when the races are over again at 9 o'clock, you can see Dan if you happen to miss that 5:30 show. So yes, the wreck of the week. You know, that was a concept that we came up with I want to say 3 or 4 years ago because people wanted to see those highlights and have them accessible. And we've had some really exciting, as you know, wrecks out there. So we're always looking for that kind of thing, and we put it on the YouTube site. And you can just go to kqegtv.com and click on where it says Wreck of the Week, and it takes you right there. And it's sponsored right now by Carey Heating and Air Conditioning, which is great.
One of the sponsors of this program as well.
Right. They're very much involved in our racing program. We love them for that. Also, and you'll get to see some of those exciting things that go on at the Speedway. If we don't always have a wreck, well then it might be, maybe we have a close finish, a bumper-to-bumper kind of finish, you know, we might put that up there. So you'll see lots of things.
And the other thing is if you even though they only have one wreck of the week on the website, if you go to YouTube, there's slews of them out there. So it's not only the one from this past week, but there's ones from 4 or 5. I saw when I first came here, actually it started about 4 or 5 years ago, the wreck with Emily Sue Steck where she ended up on top of the wall, and I saw it courtesy of YouTube and your Wreck of the Week.
Right. If you go to that website, you know, click on Wreck of the Week, you'll find, I think, 3 years or 4 years of the. I don't think we ever take them down. We just put them up there, and they're just always there, you know. So you can go back quite a bit and see a lot of it.
People like to get in that wreck fix. Whether it's this track or any other track, I mean, people like to see some of those. So, again, Knights of Thunder and then the crash of the week. Talk about you watch the races. Obviously, you listen to me when I'm doing the PA announcing there. And then you come on and you do a summation of whatever I had just said. But you usually pay attention to the races quite quickly as well. Do you agree that I'm calling this Saturday night's races Separation Saturday?
I think this is going to be a big week because you're absolutely right. This is an opportunity, especially with the late models, for somebody to really jump out of the pack, provided that they can do well in both races. Now, you mentioned the fact that if they do well in the first race, they're going to get put behind the invert in the second race. So it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for them to do well in both races. But, you know, this could be a big weekend. I also wanted to say that it seems to me this is the time of the year where you start to see drivers getting very aggressive. I thought last weekend out at the Speedway, while you saw only a couple of wrecks, you saw a lot of bumping and pushing and moving, and you know, because I think that at this point they're beginning to realize that if it isn't going to happen for me now, it's not happening this season.
And with that, and what you're saying is true, but there's also the element of heat out there, and the cars aren't reacting exactly the way they're expecting them to. With the oils and stuff on the track that we talked about before the races this time, there is that added element of the aggressiveness that you mentioned, that you got to get to the front. And also, the cars aren't reacting with the heat being so much. There's flex. They call it flex in the
But you know, if you kind of look at last weekend, though, there were so many drivers in the 6x6 dash late model wise that were all qualifying in like 20.06, 20.13. Path was the only driver of the 19, and it was a hot night. But then if you look back about 3 weeks ago, we had the identical temperatures, the identical situation at the track, and all the late model drivers couldn't get past a 20.3. It was so odd. Actually, the sportsmen have been doing that. If it's hot outside, I can pretty much guess where the top 6 drivers are going to qualify at. But the late models really surprised me because 3 weeks ago when we had that hot stretch around the 4th of July, they were qualifying horribly. And then we had the same conditions this past week. There were no fresh tires. It was on the same tires.
Actually,
it was the same thing.
Didn't we have three drivers that were under 20?
Yes, what happened was those three drivers this week bought a new left side tire. So instead of having 200 and some laps on their left rear tire, they were able to put brand new rubber on, and that's what allowed them to do that. So that's why this week is going to be a big deal, because they've got to make a choice of, obviously the first race they're going to buy a right side tire, but now is this an opportunity to buy another left side tire that'll last them the rest of the year? Because left side tires, they'll run 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, and generally that's when you can add that extra time to it. So that's what a lot of the teams are doing. Is this past week was they ended up buying the left side tire, which dropped the total number of laps and the total number of heat cycles on a tire down, and that allowed them to do
Let me ask you a question, too. Do you think, we talk about the heat right now, and these guys are getting out there in 90-degree weather, 95, and maybe even it's 100 degrees inside those vehicles, and they're all wearing those, flame retardant uniforms and such. Do you think that maybe after 15 laps or 10 laps in a feature race, you start to just get a little irritated that guy's not getting out of my way or moving fast enough? Is there a road rage involved here?
I think there's a couple of things, and that's a really good question. Number one, I think that if you find a driver that's in the top 5 in points, that is sitting back in what I call the rocking chair, they can't make a move. They know they should. They're faster than the two guys that are sitting just like this in front of them. I think number one, I think my aggression level would start to raise. But number two, when you get to that certain point and then a caution comes out, and then you've got to burn the tires, and you've got to burn your fuel, and you've got 2 20-lap features coming up this week where you can have identical feelings in the same exact, the scenario in 2 different races. And I always wonder that about the sportsman's class, because you may have 2 or 3 guys that are running out front, and then you've got 7 that are fighting for 4th position. That has to be frustrating as all get out.
I agree, absolutely. And I personally think I love the late model class, but I really think that sportsman division is one of the most exciting classes.
Competitive.
We've got very competitive, and it's just amazing that those guys can keep it on the track sometimes. And
the Thunderstock class is not as large as it was before I came here, from what I understand. But again, on any given week, if you look at this list of names right here, these names we didn't mention these at all. Dakota Miller, David Cavan, Jacinda Paff, rookie. She's running 8th in points this year. Burt Young, a rookie out of Sparta. Last year, or maybe the past 2 or 3 seasons, we had the same names, because you had the Moores in there, you had the Worthens in there, the Bolsters in there, the Nathan Whites. This year, you've got 4 or 5 names just popping out of nowhere in the Thunderstock class. You got to go, wait a minute now. They're going to become a part of this mix before the season's done.
And that's neat. You love to see new names and new people getting involved. I was so thrilled to see Harley Jankowski, with that feature race.
That was a good one.
It was great. And
right place at the right time. It was unfortunate the top 4 drivers bowed out. And then you've got Todd Corr sitting right behind you with a car that's fading away that Harley doesn't know this at the time. In the story of the entire scenario, because it was a year to the day that he'd gotten a kidney. I mean, where else do you hear stories like that?
And Matt Henderson having a great season this year. I mean,
Cars finishing 1st and 2nd for the first time ever.
You like to see these guys up in front like that. And I just think it's thrilling for them, and it should be thrilling for the fans too to see different names out there like that.
It's going to be thrilling on Saturday night again. I'm calling this Separation Saturday, primarily in the late model class. 2 20-lap features coming up. You can't finish good in one race and bad in the other race, because when it comes down to points, you don't gain much. You need to be finishing strong in both races, especially if you're one of the top 4 or 5 drivers. I'd like to thank Rick Wilson, the station anager, coming on today. He has got the bird's eye view like I do every Saturday night, right up there in the tower.
Love it.
And I have heard compliments from people I know down in Streeter, Illinois, all the way out to Arizona that watch this program on YouTube, and they cannot believe that there's such a program like this. So without Rick Wilson and the fantastic sponsors we have, wouldn't be seeing each and every weekend. And of course, Al Ossie taking time off of his schedule to come on the program as well. So Saturday, it's the races again, real quickly. You're going to be showing them the recaps.
Absolutely. Sunday night at 7 o'clock, and again on Thursday at 7. So watch them.
Wreck of the week, go to kqegtv.com. Click on the link, and you're going to find it sitting right there. For Rick Wilson and Al Ossie, I'm Dan Dyker. We will see you at the racetrack, and next week right back here on 7 Rivers Racing.